Hello and welcome to a solutions-based approach to IT management. I hope that everyone is enjoying Octane 20 Live so far. Just a quick note here that this presentation may contain forward-looking statements, so please refer to these accompanying slides for more information. This session is pre-recorded, but all of the presenters are live in the chat, so please talk to us and each other and ask questions and share resources as the session continues. My name is Adam Rosenzweig. I lead nonprofit success and product impact at Okta as part of the Okta for Good team. My job is to maximize the positive social impact of Okta's products and services, and a large part of doing that is helping nonprofits all over the world solve problems with Okta. For this session, I am honored to be joined by the Power Rangers of nonprofit technology solutions. We have an amazing group of experts here for you, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves now, starting with Jonathan.
Thanks, Adam. My name is Jonathan Mergy. I am the Director of IT at Tides. Tides is a nonprofit accelerator and philanthropic partner with a focus on building a world of social change and making the world a better place. So I'm in charge of dealing with all the technology infrastructure for our locations in San Francisco and New York, and partnering with all of our fiscally sponsored projects and all of our community foundation donors and some of the other legal entities that we work in the nonprofit sector. Bryan?
Hi, my name is Bryan Breckenridge. Don't believe I'm on video due to having more than one adult working from home today and here in the bunker. And am founding executive director of Box.org. We are an embedded social enterprise at Box Inc. that is set up to enable nonprofits to innovate and fulfill their mission. And we really do operate according to an ethos of powering how the world does more good together. So I think a good example of that here across vendor and certainly consider Jonathan and his peers out in the nonprofit world our heroes and sheroes. So over to you, Christina.
Thanks, Bryan. I'm also on the Box.org team. I'm Christina Louie, and I lead our global programs for both our employee engagement as well as channeling our resources to ensure that nonprofits can be most successful with Box.
Great. And hi, everyone. This is Snegha. I work with Adam at Okta. I'm a security specialist on the solutions team, and I work with our customers to see what kind of solutions designed with Okta will help them succeed. A part of that is working with our nonprofit customers to see what solutions fit them and their needs. So excited for all of you to join us today.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So let's get into it. This session is called a solutions-based approach to IT management. I want to start with a little bit of framing around why we're talking about solutions and not products. We designed this session with nonprofit IT leaders in mind, but it really applies to anyone. As an IT leader, you're responsible for a huge range of things. It can be overwhelming, and if it feels like it's getting harder to find clarity or to know exactly what to buy or build next, it may be because of the proliferation of applications that all of us are dealing with. This data that you're seeing now is from Okta's most recent Businesses at Work report, which we published just a few months ago. This chart shouldn't surprise anyone. On average, organizations are using more and more applications each year. One of the trends contributing to this phenomenon is the rise of best-of-breed products. By their nature, best-of-breed products like Okta or Box market themselves as solutions to specific problems, but we as vendors may not see problems exactly the same way that you do as a nonprofit. Further, many of your problems may require multiple products to be stitched together, and this puts a huge burden on you to figure out how to make it all work. This quote is adapted from Harvard Business School professor Theodore Levitt, and this really embodies the heart of this entire session. It's a mentality that focuses on the jobs to be done and the problems to be solved, rather than the tools we use to do it. Starting with solutions might be easier if it weren't for some of these other competing interests. So for example, we talk about starting with solutions as opposed to vendors because you know what your organizations need best. You don't want to be fooled or tricked by marketing or gimmicks. We start with solutions instead of budgets, which may be easier said than done for many of you. But what I would offer is that funders want to solve problems too. So rather than think about the amount of money that's within reach or that you think you're going to be able to get for something, think about what it's actually going to take to make progress and solve a problem, and see how that changes your approach to your funder conversations. We start with solutions instead of emergencies when we can, obviously. When we can't, that's a different story. And the idea here is that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So if you can think about the solutions your organization needs before there's an emergency, you're going to make smarter decisions. And lastly, we want to avoid fads because shiny objects or the latest application that seems to be getting traction in our sector may not be the most strategic choice for your organization. So now it's my pleasure to turn things over to Jonathan Mergy from Tides, who's going to talk about an approach that he's developed to identify priorities and solutions for his organization. Jonathan.
Adam, thank you. I appreciate participating with the panel on this topic. I think it's super important that IT leaders are able to kind of put everything together for the organization across the different functional areas. So this thing that we're going to go into is really more around being able to really have an IT leader step in and do an inventory of what's going on in your organization. I call it the Heatmap approach, and basically it's having IT as a leader being able to go in and partner with the functional areas of your organization and really look at the functional needs apart from necessarily what technology is directly involved or what brands are involved with it or what solution is happening with it, and just talk to partners in the functional areas that are really responsible for the execution and the success of those different areas of your organization. I just have some examples here around, development, finance, programs, legal, some of the typical nonprofit vertical departments or areas of an organization. But the concept here is really putting together a chart by functional areas that's really accessible for the different area leads that you as an IT leader can go talk to and say, well, how are systems doing in supporting these type of functional areas that you need to have happen in order for your area to be successful and the organization to be successful. So this model came out of some work that we did with RippleWorks and last year around just being able to try and work on a kind of IT systems roadmap, but we really needed to be able to get an inventory of what was working and what wasn't working. And so the idea here is really having multiple sessions with the functional areas, identifying the different functional areas that systems and your IT systems might be supporting or might not be supporting, and addressing those in those verticals. But then when you are able to put, a rating on them, whether it's, green, in this example, I use green, yellow, red. If it's green, then that means we're probably okay, we're doing all right. If it's yellow, that means, wow, there's some challenges there, but we're working around it or handling it. And then red is, of course, wow, this is a hot button issue. This is a real challenge for us, and we need to deal with it right away. When you deal with it and you inventory it in this manner, you start to see patterns across the organization that then I think make you into some of what Adam was talking about around solutions and interacting with vendors and solving the organizational challenges a little more apparent. In this example, you can see, document management, that first row up there, we're seeing yellow across some of the different verticals where we need to solve this as an organization. That's what I see when I look at this. And there's some other examples here as well, but this is a real accessible I think, relatable map for the individuals involved, but also for the C-suite to be able to understand, okay, this is how IT is relevant to the type of functional things that we need to execute on and we need to work on. So this has been really helpful for Tides in that we've been able to, pull out and divine based upon, evaluating these different areas, some commonalities, and then be able to look at those as investment opportunities around systems. We've also been able to, be able to really have those discussions around, who it puts the people in the different functional areas as partners, and they're the subject matter experts that you are partnering with. So it also puts the IT leader, in my case, the director of IT or CIO, in a position that now we're partnering with them on what they need to accomplish, and then we're bringing solutions to them from a systems perspective. It also has shaken out a lot of challenges that maybe it's red or it's yellow in the discussion, not necessarily because we don't have a system for it, but maybe there's a process or a cultural, a company culture issue where we don't want to enter this stuff, or we've never done that before, or a change management issue. So it's a really simple concept, but it really, I've always been amazed over the last year or two that I've been playing around with this, that it really has been able to kind of evolve and really shake out a lot of common understanding and common planning around the kind of things that we want to target from a system solutioning perspective. And so the other thing that we wanted to talk about, I don't know if Christina, you wanted to speak to this.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jonathan, and thanks for walking us through that really useful framework that you built and for sharing that with all of us. Wanted to kind of tap into one of the solution areas that you identified around cloud content management and really understand a little bit more about, from this framework and starting to identify the needs, how did you move into vendor selection from there?
Yeah, I mean, just going back to the map, for example, and this isn't the Tides map, but it's an example map. Clearly, I was, everybody, let's say in development and finance and programs, were having problems with document management. And those were things that historically, I know at Tides, were kind of left to the different department areas. But really coming in and saying, well, what does the solution look like that's going to be cross-functional, that's going to work for the organization? That's how we came with the solution around the content management piece for Tides, and we went with Box. The main reason in the evaluation for something like Box, and the reason why we came to a solution for Box for the organization, was the need of the complexity of the different functional areas of the organization. And in some areas of the organization, maybe you don't need the depth or the functionality that Box provides, but in other areas you absolutely do. And so one of the things that I wanted to do, and going back earlier to one of Adam's slides around the proliferation of all these different applications, I really wanted something for the organization that we could use and anchor to across the organization, regardless of complexity or simplicity. And that's how we got to Box. This is an example of just our structure. Okay. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, could you walk us through what you have pulled up here on the slide? I had a little bit of a delay, so apologies for that.
No, not a problem. This is great. Yeah, and putting it all together, being able to, and again, I think as IT leaders, we're in a unique position in the organization to be able to deliver this for organizations, to be able to see the patterns around these different areas and be able to say, okay, we are gleaming that there are some common placeholders here, or some common themes that we need to manage around our documents and our files. So this is our structure that we built out around our root directory, our department share, or really I think what everybody would have, where they would have the different functional areas have their own department shares, like they might have now in a traditional file server or Google Drive or OneDrive or whatever that they're sharing. So we have that department share structure. And then we've got what we call their initiative share structure, which is things that are cross-functional and might also be external and have external partners, vendors, other partners that we're working with, not necessarily within the organization. Employee share is the typical kind of my user drive or my own drive. So that makes sense, and that's probably a common construct for folks. And then Tides is kind of unusual in the way that we work and partner with nonprofits, with donors, with other entities in the sector. So we have a partner share where we're actually, parking all of these other specific interactions with specific partners and clients. And then application share was another thing that we built because of the extensibility of Box and the fact that Box is able to integrate deeply with applications like NetSuite and Salesforce. That was something that we also really wanted to be able to solve in this overall structure, to be able to have our documents also be sitting in the Box infrastructure, but still also be able to leverage those cloud applications. So this just gives you an example of kind of the mapping when you take a holistic approach at it and you have a solution like one of the Impact Cloud vendors like Box, where you're able to have this horsepower once you understand what the problem is and you're able to move forward on it. So it's really exciting.
This is Adam. Jonathan, I'm wondering if I could ask you some questions about this. So could you take us into the conversations that you might have with other leaders in your organization, and you might bring something like this up or use this as a visual? Like when you sit down with somebody, let's say who needs a, document management or content management solution, how does that conversation start? Let's say like for folks who are just at the beginning of something like this.
The functional map is really useful because it shows that other people have challenges too, and there's a larger view of the organization. So maybe if I'm addressing or talking to people in specific areas, I'm able to show them, wow, that is a pain point for you, but look at the pain points over here as well. So it provides another kind of visual zoom out for the org. So they start to help be part of the solution and the strategy in the organization. And then also here in a diagram like this, what's useful is if they're reluctant, if it's a change management issue, where they, just are thinking perhaps, wow, you just want to move my data somewhere and I'm fine doing what I want to do over here. When you're able to provide this larger view of everything and that it's well thought out, or they're part of a larger organizational change need, and things are thought out and we have the structure to be able to do it, and you're part of this, I think it bridges a lot of the kind of change management or change reluctance around some of this.
For sure. And you mentioned obviously that you landed on Box as a product to plug into this solution. What was it like to look at different products, look at different vendors, sort of how did you go about that process?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lack of vendors out there, that are willing to provide services. But I think for us, I didn't, if I would have gone, if I would have let the solutioning happen in the silos, I think you can find solutions to solve those specific areas that may or may not be a solution that will solve the whole, or have enough depth or breadth to be able to solve the whole. And so part of the work on the functional heat map, and then also being able to put it all together under one platform, is to be able to have the flexibility to be able to do that. So for example, maybe for employee shares or department shares, there could have been 5 different other players in the mix that could have done that. But maybe for some of the partner sharing and some of the initiative sharing, we have different governance challenges, or compliance and record retention functions that we need, and that's the case for Tides, that those other solutions aren't going to solve for. So it's definitely a scenario where in selecting Box, we wanted to get the horsepower in. Maybe we're not using it in every single area, but it's going to be easier for our users and our partners and our staff to be able to be in one platform and then be able to ratchet up that capability in different areas. And it's also something where maybe they don't need that functionality or that depth right now that's core to the product, in this case, Box. But future state, we might want to do that, and I don't want to be in a situation where I'm doing a migration to another application or another platform if I'm solutioning for the organization.
Yeah, this kind of gets to back to the idea that we started with at the top of the session about the number of applications increasing across organizations.
Totally.
And obviously what we're looking at here is a lot of effort and a lot of thought, right, that goes into sort of a polished visual aid like this, and obviously this is sort of the tip of the iceberg. How many of these should an organization think about doing, and sort of as you see a proliferation of applications, how do you think about sort of keeping the stack manageable?
Well, and that's the major challenge now, right? I mean, there's so many different opportunity, so many different options out there, and everybody has got their own specific one that they might be coming in with, but you really, I think IT has a unique situation, a unique opportunity, and a unique position to be able to put it all together for folks. And these diagrams, these one-page diagrams, are really helpful just from a translation perspective. I mean, because you're not going to have necessarily a receptive audience in our organizations if you start to get really technical, or you start to go really deep on a specific brand or a specific vendor. Like, you really want to keep folks up at the level where you can get alignment, and then you also then get a platform that can then deliver on that. I think the other big piece here, and if you look even at the kind of the lowest one in this diagram, the application share, getting a solution that works well with others, works well with other partners, and is able to kind of interact in that way. I don't want to be spending my time on trying to make applications or solutions work together if there's an existing ecosystem out there that I can harness and leverage, and it's a known commodity. And I think that also gets a lot of traction with the C-suite and executives who might not be technically savvy, but don't want to necessarily go and have to build their own connections or APIs or other things. So I think, yeah, it's limiting applications, but it's also selecting applications that are working together and connecting and have a partnership and have a knowledge of the sector. It's really important.
Thanks, Jonathan. I can't think of a better way to transition to my colleague, Bryan, to talk about just such an ecosystem of applications and vendors who are trying to work together to make this easier for folks like you all. So I'm referencing the Impact Cloud here, and I'm going to kick it over to my colleague, Bryan, to talk a little bit about what this Impact Cloud thing is and what this means for nonprofit technology leaders. Bryan.
Hi, thanks, Power Ranger Adam. That's very much appreciated. Power Ranger Bryan here, and was fortunate to get into this cloud economy benefiting nonprofits decades ago, and have remained focused on making certain that the millions of organizations that are plugging social gaps and generating positive social impact in communities have access to the best tools available. Yet when navigating the challenging scenarios that Jonathan was taking us through in terms of prioritizing vendors or garnering adoption of necessary technologies that can apply to either measurement or administrative or fundraising ends to multiply the impact of one's mission, is very daunting. And it was obvious to me, even in the very early days of 99 and 2000 and 2001, that nonprofits had unbelievable constraints, and that IT wasn't at the table, and that not too many of the technologies were internet-based at the time, and so they didn't have the need to integrate those. But as those trends started to shift, and more, call it accessibility to great technology became available, it was really addressing the access challenges that we had. But now, fast forward 20 years, you have this amazing array of thousands of technologies that are available to the Jonathans and the rest of the heroes and sheroes and nonprofit and social impact tech in the world. But it's how do these things fit together? I think we've been blessed with a tremendous community like Impact, or like the TechSoup family of organizations globally, and the other intermediaries like NetHope and TAG and others that are really now driving digital capacity for nonprofits. But I think there has also been a role to play for the past 5 or 10 years for vendors themselves to really step up and do a lot more to enable our heroes and sheroes in the nonprofit space to meet their missions in a more digital, repeatable, scalable, and safe way. And so about 5 years ago, the Clinton Global Initiative community was asking many of us in Silicon Valley who were starting to build social impact programs inside small and medium-sized technology companies to think about what we could solve or what we thought we could solve. And the Impact Cloud concept was really born then. We knew, for example, that disaster response organizations didn't have the technology that they needed, and they didn't have the star maps and the catalogs and the capacity building trainings and programs to make all these technologies fit together to respond more efficiently to disasters, man-made or otherwise, in the world. And that concept back 4 or 5 years ago has continued to evolve into a wider set of challenge areas faced by nonprofits. Now, the Impact Cloud, which today is a group of about 15 cloud providers that have a committed investment in positive social impact that get together, I kid you not, literally weekly. There's about 25 of us from the 15 companies on the phone literally every Friday. And we've created a very intensely trust-based community that's helping build those star maps that help the Jonathans and his peers navigate these crazy waters. And so the Impact Cloud, you can go to the website impactcloud.org to get a sense for what we're doing, both at facilitating community, but also facilitating the development of capacity through things like a version 1.0 catalog that lets you understand a little bit more as you click through on how the different members of the coalition's technologies fit together better. But I'd be remiss if I said we weren't moving more and more toward the necessary thought leadership to unlock funding for Jonathan and all of his peers in the world that understand that digital, in fact, leads to more impact when done well. But I would also finally say that building joint solutions and really in a collective or aligned action way, building exciting momentum for the nonprofit sector to deliver programs, to manage grantees, to keep the trains running on time, to raise more money, all the necessary things that you need to accomplish and are beholden to go fulfill your mission and scale it. We want those joint solutions to get more and more acutely aligned and fit for purpose with what the nonprofit IT community needs. We see the nonprofit IT community raising up on the priority list of funders for the first time in the last couple of years. We see the Jonathans of the world at the executive table in ways we've never seen before, which is very encouraging. IT teams are being brought into not only the strategy, but also the deployment and the measurement and the fulfillment of the strategy of a mission. And we're glad. It's been a long time coming. So as any good Power Ranger in the space would say, digital for impact has been now firmly established as sexy. The Impact Cloud is very, very committed to making solutions, as Adam calls them, easier. It's less, as we see it, about getting just the right drill or understanding where the hole or the needed point solution is, but it's building the house that the mission requires to do the work that it needs to do, especially in these crazy times of pandemic. I would also kind of close out here before I hand the proverbial virtual microphone over to Snegha that COVID-19 has been a challenging time for all of us, personally, organizationally, financially, medically, et cetera. The 15 members that do make the Impact Cloud a special community, maybe we'll have Jonathan speak a little bit to his impressions of this community before handing it to Snegha and her expertise, just to, if nothing else, fact check what I've said. in the past what feels like 2 hours I've been talking, because I talk a lot. But I would say that COVID-19 has a series of solutions that have been readied by these brands that you're seeing here visually. So if you go to the impactcloud.org website /COVID-19, you'll see that all of us are offering some access to our experts, our technology, potentially even some fiscal support through these challenging times. Jonathan, what's your impression of our community been? And then we'll hand it over to Snegha.
No, I appreciate that, and I think thanks for letting me speak to this. I mean, it's definitely something I've felt. You know, you go to conferences, you talk to any one of the folks from this group, and they know each other. They know the nonprofit sector. They're stakeholders in the sector. They have people that are dedicated in these organizations to work with us, and I think that goes a really, really long way, because you're not, as a nonprofit, organization, you're not trying to translate what you do as an organization and what you need to do to vendors in this way. You're able to, have a much quicker conversation on kind of needs analysis and requirements, and then be able to also, make the connections and just move faster with a team of folks that has a lot of tools out there for you. So it's really, really helpful.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks, Jonathan and Bryan. Let me kick it over to my colleague Snegha here on the team, who works with organizations to scope problems and design solutions for a living. Snegha, would you tell us a little bit about your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Adam. So I'm very privileged in the way that I get to work with all kinds of customers to truly see what can make a difference, to make a change in their environment, be it through one problem that they have, one tool that they need, or truly what makes them more impactful in their space. A key part of that is nonprofits, and I think it's amazing to see how nonprofits are trying to change the world. And a big part of that is us wanting to be part of that change, be it one product that we're talking about here, but as you can see, this is a community, and this community wants to be part of that change and wants to be able to help design things that truly help you. Now, when we talk to customers, the first thing I realize is what helps is listening, being a good listener and starting to understand what is the actual problem or solution that we're trying to design. The word solution means a lot to me because we're not talking about a product and a feature in a point solution. What does Okta do for you? And just speaking to that. Instead, we're turning it around and saying, let's hear what your environment does. Let's hear about what you're trying to do. And we're here to help you in that journey of saying, not here's Okta, here's Box, but here's your toolkit. Here's the toolkit of technology that's going to take you to the next step. Now, when we have these conversations, something that's really key is that we learn a lot from talking to you every single day about what you face and what you see and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And we highly encourage you to tell us, and anytime you work with any of us, be it on the solutions side or any of the conferences that you go to, come talk to us about what doesn't work for you as well, and what can we do to make things better as a community. Impact Cloud is here to make sure technology is something that you can lean on as a partner and not have to run around thinking about which vendor is going to help you and how. All the customers that I've seen have the most impact are the customers where we start to think about what are you trying to solve, and then thinking of everything as an integration. It's integrations that make us successful and not having 10 to 15 products. Even within Okta, we call our catalog of everything we have, we call it the Okta Integration Network. And I think this just goes to say it's a key example of how everything that we talk about is an integration. And we really hope we can be part of that journey for you. Not just me, but any of my other colleagues. We're really looking forward to working with you on all the different solutions that are truly going to make both of us successful. And with that, I will hand it back to Adam to close us off.
Cool. Snegha, before we get there, let me ask you
a question, which is, if I'm a nonprofit and I'm, going through the work that Jonathan outlined for my organization, mapping functions to different systems, and I'm ready to do some diligence and talk to a vendor, maybe it's Okta, maybe it's Box, maybe it's any of these other organizations on the screen, or someone who's not mentioned here. from your seat, you might be one of the first kinds of people that I talk to at a vendor. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give me and to our participants about pre-work that they might want to do before they come to those meetings so that they can get the most out of it and be the most prepared?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question, Adam. So when we start to work with customers, the initial set of things that we do is ask a lot of questions. And something that really helps us is to truly understand your environment. So something that I would say helps anytime you're talking to a technology partner, be it from their for good initiatives or solutions perspective, something that really helps is to first understand how technology plays a part in your environment today. Are there pieces that already exist in your environment that do something for you? And truly understanding how sticky those are. That way we're able to design around what's important to you, what can be transitioned, and how we can help you be successful and adopt the technologies that you have today and tomorrow. The second thing that's really helpful is to start to understand where you would like to be and what your top pain points are, be it your end user experience, your spend on technology, or so many other things. And especially for the nonprofit space, something that really helps us is understanding how all of this links to your day-to-day of what your nonprofit does. Having that link, especially since it's so unique in the nonprofit space, really gives us the understanding of starting to think about things that not just are A, B, C, D, but also how can we design something for you or start to think of creative ideas to present those to you. So I think in general, just having that discovery done of all the technology you have in your environment, your top pain points, especially in terms of technology, who you're interfacing with, and that's another key piece. What kind of environments you're in are really important. So for example, are you working with grantees? Are you working with employees from another company? Are you working with employees just at your company? And how they interface with you, these are all pieces of information that really help us.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks, everyone. To wrap us up, I just want to return to something that Bryan said earlier, which is when I started, we were talking about nobody needs a drill, what we need is a hole. And what he reminded us of is that the picture is even bigger than that. We're trying to build a house. And I think what he means by that is for us to keep our eye on not just the technology solution we're trying to deliver, but always to connect that back up to your organization's mission. So we hope that you feel more empowered and confident to solve your organization's most important problems and to work with vendors like us to do it. We are here to help. You can find more information from all these companies at impactcloud.org. You can reach out to us on the Okta for Good team at oktaforgood@okta.com by email. For those of you who have some time to attend other Octane 20 live sessions, these are all sessions that are designed specifically for nonprofit and social impact professionals like you. The two prior to this are on demand now, and if you are watching live and you stick around, then you can catch that last session on quantifying the value of nonprofit technology investments coming right up. Thanks again for joining us in this session, and we'll see you soon.